Welcome to another de-stressing video. The literature exam paper 2 seems overwhelming. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes long, and my job is going to be to show you that it's not overwhelming at all. I'm going to give you very little work. Now, my board looks a little bit intimidating because there are 12 things, but number 1 is as important as all the rest. So check this one out. This exam sorts out people by personality. Loads of people are feeling, I didn't get the marks that I wanted in paper 1. I'm quite anxious about it. And what happens? They start to give up in paper 2. I see this every single year. But paper 2 is a complete gift, because all you have to do is write fast. Now that might sound childish, but it's not. When I sat my GCSE in November last year, I just blitzed it and wrote as many pages as I could, and that's how I got to only dropping 1 mark. Here, you've got 3 goes. Basically, you can divide the paper into 3 45-minute sections and just blitz each 45. And what you'll see is students giving up or stopping to think, and that doesn't get them the marks. Just keep writing as fast as you can, and you will outperform 80% of other students in the country. That is not an exaggeration. You can have different timings if you want. I like to have really simple timings because under exam pressure I know I'll forget stuff, and I can easily remember 3 blocks of 45s, and here I can fit in my unseen poem and the comparison in that 45 minutes. Okay, so the examiners are giving you another gift. One, they've gifted you this massive time limit in order to write loads, which most students don't take. So there's that gift right there. The second gift is right at the top of the mark scheme. It says write about the author's purpose and ideas. And how do the examiners give that to you? Well, they give you a theme question in your modern text. Let's say most of you are doing an Inspector Calls. There'll always be a theme question instead of a character question. You can do either, but the theme question forces you to write about the author's ideas. It forces you to get higher marks. So I always pick the theme question. It's just an easy way to know from the get-go I'm going to get top grades. Number 3, if I always use the word society in my answer to the modern text and to the anthology poems, I'm always going to be writing about the author's ideas. I'm always going to be getting top marks. So this is easy for me in the exam. I can just write down the word society on the top of my paper and I'll remember to use it in all my answers. The more often you use that word, the higher your mark will be, as long as you're explaining the author's ideas when you use the word. Bonus tip, if you use the word patriarchal, even higher grade. You can't just use it irrelevantly. You're going to talk about the author's view of the patriarchal society. Do they agree with it? Do they disagree? Inspector Calls is the easiest example. Loads of the poems are like that though. It's just so easy for you to get really great marks without having to do any extra revision. Okay, in the unseen poem, the examiners won't give you a poem which is about society. Why? Because you need some context knowledge for that, and because it's unseen, they can't assume that everyone knows the context. But what context do they know? Our feelings, our emotions. We all have those, even psychopaths. So we've all got emotions. And the literary term for emotions is the human condition. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are all human. We're all in this condition where we all feel love and rage and envy and hope and whatever other emotion. That's what your unseen poem will be about. And so one of the feelings will probably be a keyword in the question, but you're going to substitute it or link it to the human condition. And the examiner will go, whoa, I'm going to start teaching with a spatula. This is so amazing. Right, number 5, this is important at this stage in the video. If you've got a method that's working, and you know it's working because of your mocks, don't change it. Like, don't just say, oh, Mr. Salles says there's something better. It might be better, but you've already got something that works and you don't want to change something that's working just before the exam. So if there are any changes in here that appeal to you, only do them if they're addressing a need. You've looked at the mocks and thought, oh, I've got to change this bit. Okay, the poem anthology. The most popular way to do the poetry comparison taught in schools is write about poem A and then compare to poem B, and write another thing about poem A, compare to B, another thing about A, compare to B, another thing about A, compare to B. And, you know, different teachers will say, oh, do 3 paragraphs, or do 4, or do 5. Okay, the number of paragraphs doesn't matter, but that's the most popular method. However, the simplest method that I use, and remember, only use this if that one's not working for you, is write all about poem A. So you start with whatever the question is, you write your point of view of the poet, that's your opening sentence, and then you write all about poem A, proving what you've just said, and then you write another sentence or two saying, right, now I'm going to write about poem B, and they think about blah, 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 linked to the question, yeah, whatever's in the question, and then write all about poem B. You will notice that they are different sizes, because the examiners don't say you have to write 50-50 about each poem. This forces you to write 50-50, but the examiners don't care about 50-50, and so I would choose poem A, the one I like best and know best. I'll write about that one most, because that's going to get me more marks. And then I'll write about the second poem least. Okay? And as long as you've done that sort of comparison at the beginning of poem B, you've satisfied the examiner's rule that you have to compare. Obviously, you will spot things when you're writing about poem B that are similar or different to poem A, and you can mention those as you go. But you might be feeling stressed, thinking, well, that's not enough comparison, is it? So, number 7, and this comes from the examiner's report, and it says, remember guys, comparison is not an assessment objective. Yeah, in other words, we don't actually assess comparison. It's not something we care about. It's just something we've put in to give you something to write about. But when we're assessing your skills, we don't care about comparison at all. So that method 100% fits that. And the other way I know this method 100% fits it is by the dozens of top grade answers I read every year, and most of them, they're written like that, because it's much easier to think about as well. Thinking like this is hard. Anyway, take that advice if it's useful to you. The modern text. So I would ask you to memorise the author's purpose. Don't go memorising loads more quotes. You already know the quotes. Loads of quotes will come to you under pressure. Even better, when you can't remember the full quote, you tend to remember the 1 or 2 words that are really important, and they're much easier to write about and lead you to have a better analysis. So do not stress about the quotes. You already know enough. You also know, I hope, that the examiners don't need you to quote at all. They just talk about references to the text. So all they need is that you talk about what happens in the text and why the author has put that in there. That's where the marks are. Okay, so do not stress about the quotes, but for why the author has put it there, the author's purpose, that's what you're going to practice writing. So, and I would do this with a bit of writing speed as well, you know, so I'd say, right, Miss Salles has said I've got to really blitz this. I wonder how many words I could write in 15 minutes. Bash! And then just look at it and think, wow, if I trebled that, 15 minutes to give me 45, oh my God, look at the size of the essay I can write tomorrow. My God, the examiner's going to go crazy. I'm going to do that 3 times. So, write about the author's purpose. The next thing to do for the modern text is find the 6 key events that show the author's purpose. Yeah, so if you're doing an inspector calls and you want to show that he's against capitalism and he's for social responsibility and he's against war. Okay, what are the 6 moments in the play that will prove that? And those are the ones that you're going to use in your 15 minutes writing about the author's purpose. Even better though, if you always write about the opening and the ending as part of your 6, you will always be looking at the author's point of view. Why? Because the author starts with a point of view, and then by the end of the text, it's always changed slightly. This happens in every text we study, every text you'll ever read in your whole life. What's brilliant about that is you can easily write about the author's purpose, but bonus thing, when I talk about the opening and the ending, I'm talking about the change in structure. This is also in the examiner's report. By writing about the opening and the ending, I'm automatically getting structure marks from the mark scheme. I don't need fancy words to describe the structure. If you know them, whack them in, no worries. But you just have to talk about how the author shows the change of a theme or the change of a character over time, from the opening to the ending, structure marks, as well as author's purpose, author's ideas marks. Top of the mark scheme just opens up to you like a massive prairie and you are a lion hunting wildebeest which limp. They're that easy to catch. Okay, the opening and the ending of the poems are crucial because they also give you the structure. No, you don't have to write about enjambment and rhyme schemes and free verse and iambic pentameter and all that stuff. If you see it and it's relevant to your point, by all means do, but you can easily say the poem is structured to change our perception from the opening, which was blah blah blah, to the new perception in the end, blah blah blah. Marks aplenty. Otter. So this is my mnemonic where one letter stands for each thing that I've got to do when I'm writing about the unseen poem. This really helps me. I know the O stands for opening and the E stands for ending. So if I'm writing about the opening and the ending of the unseen poem, I'm going to hit the structure marks. It's going to be easy for me to write about the human condition because it's presented at the beginning. And at the end, it will always be about feelings. Then I have to have something that is a literary technique of some sort. There's bound to be some simile, some alliteration, some personification, some symbolism, some imagery. There's got to be, hasn't there? The R is to remind myself that I've mentioned the word structure when comparing the opening to the ending. I've only got to write about 4 things. Opening, 1 image, 2nd image, ending. Perfect. That leaves me time for the 8-mark question. Now, every year, the 8-mark question, which is the comparison of 2 unseen poems, probably 30% of students tend to write more for the 8-mark question than they did for the unseen poem, which is worth 24 marks. Do not fall into that trap. The 8-mark question, these marks are easy to hoover up. So 1 comparison will probably get you 6 marks. 2 comparisons will get you 8 marks, as long as you use the human condition and quotes that show it. And when you see a technique, if it's relevant, you name it. And if you can't name it, it's imagery or symbolism. Write as fast as you can. I have a saying, the fastest hand wins the draw. I see myself as a duelist fighting a battle, but then I'm a boy. I would think that, wouldn't I? But the fastest hand wins. If you would like to see what top grade essays look like for all of these questions, they're actually free in the description. I publish them every week on my Substack entirely for free, and you can find it down there. Or you can get all of my guides for free, 26 guides entirely free for 30 days. There's another link in the description. See you on the other side.